Hello again, everybody. This is Pastor Tony bringing you today's word in season, a word of encouragement for you. And we're calling this Victory Week. I tell you, right in the middle of all this stuff, we can just get up and claim victory and declare victory. And what gives us that right? What gives us the basis for being able to declare victory in any circumstance, in any situation, even though outwardly it looks like we're going down in flames and everything is falling apart around us? Well, it's because of the finished work of Jesus. It's because of the victory that God has already wrought for every single one of us in the triumph of Christ, and then given to every single one of us as being in Him. See, if you're looking at yourself apart from Christ, you're always going to see yourself struggling. You're always going to see yourself always coming short of not ever getting there, of not having a sure, secure victory that we always see in Christ Jesus while we're seeing ourselves in Him. I want to look today at some scriptures over in Colossians chapter 2. This forms the basis, first of all, for Satan's total absolute defeat in our life and your absolute victory in life. So here in Colossians chapter 2, I'm going to read from verse 13 down through verse 15. It says, and you. I like the fact that we have an and you gospel. That, even though we have eyewitness accounts of what Jesus went through, we are co-participants with Him. We are in Christ. Everything that Jesus did for us is put to our account like we did with Him. And of course, that is the way God sees you, and that's the way we need to see ourselves. That's the proper perspective of victory in life. So it says, and you, being dead in your trespasses and the uncircumcision of your flesh, He has made alive together with Him, having forgiven you of all trespasses. Notice that we were, past tense, dead in trespasses and sin. That's the way we were without Jesus. That is a place of defeat, absolute, complete defeat and domination by the enemy. Now I want you to see that He has made us alive, already past tense also. When we were born again, this became a reality in your life. He has made us alive together with Him, having forgiven you of all trespasses. Notice that He has forgiven you of all trespasses. That would include past, present, and future tense. God's not looking at you in sin anymore. He looks at you in His Son, and He sees a son and a daughter, an offspring, a child of God, one of His own. Verse 14 reads, having wiped out. I like that right there. Having wiped out the handwriting of requirements that was against us, which was contrary to us. And He has taken it out of the way, having nailed it to the cross. Now notice that there were requirements, handwriting of requirements that was against us. The law was standing in authority over us and demanding perfect, complete righteousness out of us, and we couldn't do it. In fact, we were falling further and further behind in payments. And we were falling further and further in debt. But notice that Jesus came through His finished work, went to the cross, paid the sin debt off, became a overpayment, a double payment for our sin. In other words, He put something in our account, and at the same time, He fulfilled all the requirements and the demands of the law once and once for all of us. And then He nailed that as a finished work on His cross. And then He was buried. But the third day, when He was resurrected, that wasn't hanging over His head. And us being raised up with Him, having freely been forgiven of all sin, that handwriting of requirements, the law does not stand demanding those things out of us and demanding that payment for that sin debt, because Jesus paid it off. And we are receiving His perfect righteousness now as being sin-free. Now notice in the same breath, verse 15 says, having disarmed principalities and powers, He made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them in it. Now I like that right there. Notice, He said, having disarmed, past tense. When did He do this? At the same time that He paid the price for sin on the cross, at the same time, He nailed the handwriting of requirements that was against us, contrary to us, hostile to us, that He disarmed principalities and powers. He disarmed Satan and all his forces that were against us. He has nothing in his armament, nothing in his arsenal anymore. He has nothing at his disposal. He has no leverage in his armament anymore to leverage over us condemnation, guilt, and shame, and defeat. See, this spells Satan's defeat right here. He not only defeated the forces of hell that were against us, he disarmed him at the same time. We're facing an enemy that has nothing in his arsenal unless you give it to him. Unless you see yourself outside of Christ in an unfinished, incomplete work, and you begin to arm the enemy against you. But listen, when we stand on the finished work of Jesus, we're standing against an enemy who is attacking us, but he's attacking us with nothing in his armor. He's already been disarmed. And notice he made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them in it. The Amplified reads this way, that he made a public example of them and triumphing over them in him and in it, the cross. I want you to see that right there. Through the finished work of Jesus, Jesus disarmed your enemy, the adversary. He has nothing at his disposal to triumph over you. And he made a public spectacle of them. He wants you to see it. He wants you to see your enemy defeated and disarmed. And he triumphed over them. He wants you to see the full triumph of Jesus. And when we keep our eyes on Jesus, when we keep our eyes on the finished work of Jesus, then we see a complete, perfect triumph over the enemy. And that's why he says he always causes us to triumph in Christ Jesus. In every turn, in every way, in every situation, we're always caused to triumph in Christ Jesus. Take it by faith, boldly stand off with the enemy, and declare his defeat and declare your victory in Jesus. We'll see you next time. Be strong and be courageous.